Hello and welcome to another painting video. In this video, I'll be painting an allied unit for my World Eaters, the Flesh Hounds of Khorne. I used to have the old Chaos Hounds, and to my surprise, these Flesh Hounds are way bigger and cooler, so I had to have them. Inspired by the terror dogs from the Ghostbusters, let's see how I painted these puppies. Let's begin, shall we? After priming the model with black primer, I give the entire hound a coat of Naggaroth Night. This will be the base of the purple skin and will give a much more interesting shadow than just pure black. I want to make a distinction between the lower and upper skin. The lower skin gets a, well, whatever's opposite of a zenithal, with a Zerus Purple. Next, I layer the skin with a mix of Zerus Purple and Cadian Fleshtone. There are different ways to do this. Either layer it or feather it. I repeat the previous step with a mix of Genestealer Purple and Kislev Flesh. With these steps, I focus my highlights so there is a gradient between darker and lighter parts. The final highlight is a mix of Slaanesh Grey and Palette Swish Flesh. As you can see, I skipped large areas on the upper part of the model. This will be a different color. I like this unnatural skin tone. Works perfectly for demons. The big crest next to the head I decided later on to paint in a different color. For the black, almost armor-like skin, I use a sponge with Abaddon Black to create a pattern. I focus on the upper parts and the parts that have these little bumps everywhere. I repeat the sponge technique with Skavenblight Dinge. Hard to reach places I do with a brush, and I make sure there's little paint on the sponge. I made some mistakes myself a few times, but I just went back with Abaddon Black to fix it. I do another layer of Stormvermin Fur. I especially like this effect on the tails and the heads of the hounds. It looks really natural. I end with a highlight of Dawnstone. Although most of the model is very dark, I do like the different skin tones. They work really well together. Let's have a look at those big crests on the side of the head. The crests sure are an awesome detail on these models. I base coat them with Kislev Flesh. I needed a couple of coats to get a nice and even coat. I shade the crests with a mix of Guilliman Flesh and Volupus Pink. I also add some contrast medium to make the shade mix flow better. I layer on Kislev Flesh mixed with Slaanesh Grey on the raised areas. And I end with a highlight of Palette Swish Flesh. It's good to add some lighter details on these dark models. In hindsight, I might have blended the edges a little bit more, because now there's like a sudden change of skin tone which might look a little bit weird. We do want some realism in our Hounds of Hell, right? This cannot be a model of Khorne without some form of brass. I base coat the colors with Balthasar Gold, layer with Runelord Brass, shade with Seraphim Sepia, and highlight with Canoptek Alloy. Some of the hounds have a mane. I base coat these with Incubi Darkness, shade with Nuln Oil, and add two highlights. The first one is Thunderhawk Blue. And the second is Fenrisian Grey. This will render the hairs dark, which suits the model, but will add some subtle highlights at the same time. Two hounds have a Khorne sigil branded on their thighs, and there's also quite a few horns on the models. I base coat all of these with Evil Sunz Scarlet. And shade them with Carroburg Crimson, creating the darkest color for our lava/fire effect. I bring back Evil Sunz Scarlet on the raised areas, and I also layer this on the surrounding skin of the sigils. This will make it look like the skin is still smoldering from the fire. I paint Wild Rider red on the raised edges. I don't cover them completely. Added to the spots, the fire will be the brightest. With the horns, I focus on the tips. I repeat the last step with a mix of Wild Rider red and Flesh Kids yellow. Again, I focus the area even more. The brightest spots get some Flesh Kids yellow. Really focus here on the tips of the horns and the outer edges of the sigil. Finally, I highlight these bright spots with Dorn Yellow. This color is very close to white, and it will really sell the idea the horns and the sigils are burning hot. Claws and teeth get a base coat of Ushabti Bone. And they shade with Seraphim Sepia. I usually go with Skeleton Horde, but I find Seraphim Sepia to have a much bleaker tone which fits these hounds very well. I highlight with Screaming Skull. For the gore, I add some texture paste to some of the maws and claws of the hounds. This will add some texture to the gore. I make a mix of Flesh Terror Red, Cygor Brown, and Contrast Medium to base coat the gore. Either add as much or little Cygor Brown as you want. My mix was a little bit too dark to my liking. You only need a little Cygor Brown to make the blood a bit darker. I added a bit too much. Next, go over the gore again with Flesh Terror Red. For an additional step, especially if the previous step is too dark, you can highlight the gore with Khorne Red. I added Ardcoat to make the gore shiny and gross. You can add any gloss varnish here, of course. And here we have some Flesh Hounds straight out of hell. I really like these demon dogs, and every model is unique. And they are a cheap, deep striking ally for the World Eaters. The base was painted like all my World Eater units. Either watch the Khorne Berserker video or look up the short I made on how to paint urban ruins. I have not decided what my next video will be, and I'm also playing around with a brand new camera, so hopefully the next tutorial will look a lot better. In the meantime, be sure to check out my Instagram, where I post pictures of current projects and behind the scenes stuff. But for now, thanks for watching.